Geico presents sharing versus oversharing. Earlier this week, Claire Tippins shared a princess nickname generator, 3 pictures of her dog wearing a tutu, and 2 online quizzes, including what candy is your dream castle made of? Claire, your sharing has tipped the sugar scale and turned into oversharing. But have no fear, princess. Geico has something worth sharing with your internet kingdom, like how you could save hundreds on your car insurance just by visiting geico.com. No magic wand required. Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
You're listening to the Morning Punchin' Show with RB and Jae, live and direct from more cities than an Instagram model's bio. Get ready for some boxing talk on the clock. Let's face it, you're not working and somebody's got to pay for the Wi-Fi.
Hey, everyone. We are back, RB and Jae, with the Morning Punchin' Show. Took a week off last week. There wasn't too much going on, but we're back today. We're in full force. We have some crazy, unpredictable, honest, and authentic takes today on some of the hottest boxing topics. We're going to play some boxing trivia. I got my co-host with me, Jay. Jay, what's good over there in L.A.?
I'm over here just trying to figure out how I can spit a hot 16 and still sound credible. No, I'm just kidding. I'm over here happy it's Friday, back with you, back with the listeners for some more boxing talk on the clock. It's morning where we are, so stop saying it's not a morning show if it's not morning where you are. It's morning for us.
Well, we're gonna rock with everybody on the clock while they're at work. And hey, if you don't follow Jay on Twitter, it's at JetHang. So make sure you give her a follow. She's been everywhere this week covering all types of pre-fight events and fundraisers, and we're going to get into that too, but she's been putting a ton of content up on badculture.net, so you got to go peep that out. A lot of fun stuff this week. Anyway, I did mention that we're going to play Know It or Blow It with you guys today, which is boxing trivia. So you actually have to call in to play. The number is 718-508-9852. Press 1 to enter the game. We're going to give you 1 shot and 10 seconds on the clock to answer some boxing trivia and win some boxing apparel. So, Jay, the biggest hot topic, and we're actually going to have a special guest joining us today to get through it, is Tom Hauser this week put out this Al Haymon mini-series. And as of today, four parts have been put out, and we're waiting for part 5 to come out today. So we're going to really break that down and analyze it, but it caused like this really big frenzy within boxing, amongst the fans, amongst the media, and it's really weird because a lot of it, is stuff that we kind of already knew.
Right.
And the other part of it is stuff that I don't think fans really care about. So we're going to dissect it a little bit more. We're going to be joined by a very unbiased editor, in my opinion, and writer, Jake Donovan from the BoxingScene, and he likes to call it really straight down the middle, where, he hasn't taken a side either way like many people in the media have. So we want to make sure that we're being very authentic, that we're calling it down the middle, so that we can really give you guys a nice recap of what this little mini-series was all about. We've got some hot topics. We've got hot topics on Matisse and Broner and some other things. So, Jeandra, I actually want to start with you because you attended the Berto Ortiz press conference this week in L.A., and from what I saw, from what you put on badculture.net, it was a riot. It was a lot of fun.
Yes.
They made us more excited for this fight.
They did. These guys, 2011 was the last time they fought. The fight ended with Victor Ortiz pulling out the victory, a real smash-bang event. Go out on YouTube and find the previous fight if you want to prep yourself for watching the rematch, although it probably won't look anything like the first fight. But these guys were kind of lit. Ortiz is kind of goofy, kind of corny, but all in all, he's a fun guy. But Berto wasn't having it. Ortiz shared stories with us that they were at the Southpaw premiere and the PR people wanted them to sit by each other. And he was of the notion, I'm not tripping. I was sitting next to Berto. It's all good. Berto didn't want to sit next to him. Berto didn't want to shake his hand. Berto shoved him during the presser. I mean, man, Berto is mad with this dude. And I asked Vic Ortiz, and you can go watch the video. I said, Vic, what is it about you that just make people have such a strong reaction to you? And you'll have to go and see what he says because, his response is interesting because you never know what you're going to get with Victor Ortiz.
I saw a couple times where he asked people, well, who do you think did better against Mayweather? And I'm like, wait a minute, you want people to tell you
really?
who lost the best? Like, you want us to tell you, like, who looked better losing against Floyd?
Right.
So I thought it was funny. But you know what? I just really come to like Victor Ortiz. He's such a Looney Tune, but I just think it's really who he is. He's this Mexican guy from Kansas who turned into a surfer dude from, like,
right.
Malibu. And someone did ask him about training with Joel Diaz. I don't know if that was you or not, but he said pretty much that he just didn't like living in Indio. He, you know, there's nothing but dirt and more sand, and there's a little casino there, but he doesn't really like to gamble. So he was like, look, I like to go surfing. I like to go to the beach. And, you know, that's more his environment. That's where he feels most comfortable. So he pretty much did confirm that he's no longer training with Joel Diaz, correct?
Correct. And, you know, you can't blame him. I think he's just got a little taste of that. You know, he left Kansas. He's not in Kansas anymore. And you take this kid out of Kansas who's been living this Hollywood life, and then you put him down there in Indio. For those of you who don't live in California, there ain't shit in Indio. It's literally, as he described it, it's just nothing. It's just nothing. And there's nothing wrong with that if you're accustomed to that life. But for somebody like Vic Ortiz, he was like, nah, I fought my way out of Kansas. I'm not going back to this shit. So, you know, you can't be mad at that. If you know it's not a right fit, you got to do what's right. Why force it? And next thing you know, you ended up like Chavez Jr. eating tacos and Slurpees in the dark at night when nobody's looking. Who knows?
You know, Berto, I felt, was really feeling himself. I mean, his confidence is on a whole nother level. And it's funny because Victor said, man, he blames me for his career spiraling downwards. And he's here, you know, talking with his chest and all this other stuff. And it's like, after that Mayweather fight, dudes really start feeling themselves. I mean, it's really bizarre. It's bizarre to me.
I know. I mean, I guess that payday helped. But, yeah, Berto was swagging hard. He just, you know, Berto is pretty cool when you talk to him in interviews. You know, he's never a dick or anything like that, but he was just swagging hard and, you know, I'm looking good today and my face is looking all pretty. I'm like, what version of Berto is this? Maybe I need to go take an L and then I'll talk about how pretty I am. Damn. It was just a whole nother version.
Oh, man. Well, little bit of an update on Lucas Matisse. Moving on. Oscar De La Hoya wants Lucas Matisse to return in September in a blockbuster event. And he used the word blockbuster like 3 or 4 times. Lucas Matisse suffered a fractured orbital bone in his loss to Victor Postol. And apparently it's still really bothering him. The injury is still lingering, so he couldn't fight on the Canelo Khan card. But Oscar wants him back in September. He wants a big blockbuster fight. So I'm like, okay, the word blockbuster, that's a big, big word. So who can Canelo be fighting in September, Jay, that would be considered a blockbuster fight?
Matisse?
No.
In a blockbuster fight?
He wants Matisse back in September on a blockbuster card. It would be with Canelo, obviously, headlining. So what's this blockbuster fight? Yeah.
You know, he wants us to think it's a Triple G fight. I just honestly... I want to be optimistic, and I just feel like we're not getting that Triple G fight in September. If we get it, I have no problem saying I was wrong, and I will accept my 20 lashes as well as anyone. But I don't know. I think they're just going to give us some weirdo curveball fight again. You know, Oscar might flip around and have Canelo fight like Bernard or something. You know what I mean? Just something just kooky and crazy. You just never know, because I just feel like we're not getting Canelo GGG in September. I would like it, but I don't think we're going to get it.
I agree. I think we could see it next year. I don't know if that's a blockbuster fight. Seriously, I don't know who Canelo can fight in September that would be blockbuster worthy. You know, that's just such a big word. But we know that Oscar really has a way with words. He knows how to market things and promote things. So, you know, he probably just used that word, and we'll probably see, like, you know, a decent event in September.
Exactly.
Adrian Broner got into some trouble in January, and it all rolled out yesterday. So we're going to breeze through this one really quick. before we start dissecting the Hauser mini-series. There was a warrant issued for Adrian Broner's arrest yesterday for assault and robbery charges in an incident that occurred in Cincinnati back in January. The president of About Billions Promotions told Mitch Aberson that the fight is going to be on despite the charges, and apparently there needs to be some type of an arrangement made. So I don't know if Broner has to turn himself in. Are they going to go looking for him? But there still needs to be some type of an arrangement. So whether he calls there and says, I'm going to check y'all out next week, or, whether he goes to Ohio and turns himself in and they bail him out and he's good for next week, nobody really knows. But the people at About Billions and everyone else seems to think that the fight will go on. Apparently he owed this kid from the bowling alley about $14,000. They were betting on bowling matches. And AB, probably didn't want to cough up that money and supposedly, beat him up and brought out a gun and all types of typical Broner being Broner. He just does real typical street shit still. And, the kid probably wanted his money. And so now he took it to the police. Mike Coppinger yesterday called the police department. Mike Coppinger from USA Today always wants people to get their credit, so we're going to give him his credit where it's due. He called the police department and said, hey, do you really have an arrest warrant out for Adrian Broner? And they were like, yeah. And he was like, well, how does this work? Because he has a fight next Friday, April 1st, at the D.C. Armory in Washington, D.C. And the police department, he ratted Broner out so bad. So the police department's like, flabbergasted. Coppinger says they were flabbergasted. Like, well, he's got to turn himself in. We got a warrant out for him. So now they know where he's at, where he's fighting, and everything else. So some arrangements need to be made, but the show is said to still go on. We tried to get Ashley Theophane on the show yesterday, but they pulled the plug on him real quick. He probably didn't even know all the details. We probably knew more than him at the time. So we'd still like to get Ashley Theophane, but we couldn't do it. We really tried. That would have been a lot of fun. What's your take on this whole Broner ordeal, Jay?
Adrian Broner, he just refuses to act right, but you can take a kid out the streets, but you can't take the street out the kid, apparently. He just feels comfortable in these alleged legal situations that just continue to haunt his career. And what's shameful is if he does go to jail, that's a serious charge. He could go to jail for a long time, lose out on a lot of prime years, but maybe he needs that. Maybe he needs the law to sit his ass down somewhere. But unfortunate for Adrian Broner. They know where he's at. Adrian, be careful when you out doing your road work, son. They're going to find you. You're going to be running down the street trying to put some miles in and be like, excuse me, Adrian Broner? Snatch. And, it's just unfortunate. So we'll see how this develops. Could you imagine if they put him into some indentured servitude like they did Antonio Tarver and we start seeing Broner on the broadcast desk? If Al Haymon does bail him out, we're going to see AB on the Spike telecast with the big Rick Ross beard calling the fights. Can you imagine?
Somebody on Twitter said Broner should come out to F the police wearing shackles and handcuffs. That would be classic.
Yo, he got a sense of humor. He might want to. I don't know. Maybe he might. He came out with Kendrick Lamar before early in his career. Maybe he want to come out with Kendrick doing and we hate po-po when they should have down in the street some more. We gonna be all right. Now that would be pretty funny. That would be pretty bad.
Well, I know we got a lot of callers on, and everyone is probably tuning in to hear us talk about this Tom Hauser series on Al Haymon.
Yes.
And I just saw right now that Part 5 has been posted on ringtv.com. So with that being said, I think, I really wanted to read this before the show, but it wasn't posted, so hopefully Jake Donovan can read that for us and then fill us in. I think we actually have Jake Donovan on the line. Can we bring him on?
He's on the line. What's up, Jake?
What's up, Jay? What's up, Ray?
Hey, so Jake Donovan, he's the managing editor at BoxingScene, and he's one of the guys that I respect a ton in boxing, in the media, because he calls it straight down the middle.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome. That says a lot about your integrity and your work ethic. So we wanted to bring someone on that was unbiased, that could help us get through this mini-series that Tom Hauser put out. You know, some of it is funny, some of it is factual. A lot of it is like, you know, why do people care? So we kind of wanted to dissect it. Have you been able to read Part 5, or are you just seeing it now that it's been posted as well?
I'm literally halfway through the story right now.
Okay, well, you know what? Why don't we let you finish the story, because Part 1 is kind of silly, so I could actually go over Part 1 with everyone while you're finishing Part 5.
Okay.
Let's
do it. That sounds
okay. All right. So when we bring Jake on, I'll get more of how he feels about how they're putting this out and what some of the conflicts and biases and ethical issues could be there. But so Bombshell comes out on Monday. You know, Tom Hauser, who is a consultant for HBO, puts out Part 1 of this series called What We Know About Al Haymon. So if you follow the sport, or if you're in the boxing business, then you knew most of the stuff that he was putting out. If you don't follow the sport enthusiastically, and if you don't care about the business, if you just like watching good fights on TV, then you have no clue, and there was a lot of juice in these articles, okay? But, again, not so sure why a typical fan would really care about this nitty-gritty. I mean, that's like me. I like baseball. I watch baseball. But I don't care to know shit about really what's going on behind the scenes and who's getting what and how. I'm not involved in that industry. I'm just a fan. So this goes out on ringtv.com, which gets, you know, a ton of viewers, a ton of clicks. And you got to think, you know, why did this go out?
I don't know. Maybe they were bored like us at the beginning of the boxing year. I don't know.
Yeah, and why are people so interested? Why are people so interested to get to know Al Haymon more on a personal level? And I get it. Sometimes when you make yourself so discreet and you make yourself so secretive and you fly low, typically people want to know more about you, because we live in just a real nosy society where reality TV has taken over. So we want to know things like where he's at, what he looks like, what he wears, what he eats. I mean, that's kind of bizarre.
It is. It's like a weirdo kind of infatuation, you know. I just give me the end result. I don't live with you. I don't pay your bills. Just, man, I don't really care. I don't want to know that when he was in college, he had a fajita with, you know, his dorm neighbor. I don't need to know all that. I'm just saying.
Did you say
that's
fajitas?
Just me. Yeah, you know, hey, you want to go get some fajitas? Hey, let's go to the student union. I don't need to know all that. I don't need to know that. Where the money at? That's what I want to know. Let's follow the money. Let's get our Lester Freeman shout out to The Wire. Where the money at? That's what I want to know.
Well, this 5-part series created a frenzy between boxing media. You got these writers right now that are coming at each other's necks. They're upset. Yep. They're accusing each other of being paid, of being biased. I mean, it's so crazy. I talked to Russell Peltz the other night about this and about the writers and how they're kind of really offended by what Hauser put out there in one way or another. And, you know, Peltz said to me there was a time back in the day where all the writers got along. They all went out for drinks after the fight. You know, they would share information with each other, and they got along. You know, there was more of a brotherhood back then, and everybody wanted to see each other do well. And back then, you didn't get paid off. You know, there was writers back then that wouldn't even take a fight ticket for their wife. If you were a promoter and said, here, to a writer, here's a ticket for your wife, have her come and do the show, they would decline the ticket because they didn't want to be made, you know, felt that they had to write something, you know, extravagant or something super positive if they didn't think it was that. So things have definitely changed within the industry and especially within the writers. I don't know if many of them are journalists anymore. You have some that write for really big websites and they get paid, and then you have others that tweet a lot. That's like me. I'm not a journalist.
But you better source somebody in your tweets. You know, it's just a symptom of what social media has done to journalism, you know, as an old institution. The internet has given everyone a platform to write, and, you know, some are legitimate journalists like our esteemed guest, and then there are people like me who can construct a decent sentence, but I'm no journalist either. You know, I can put together a decent paragraph, but Jeff Pulitzer definitely won't be knocking on my door anytime soon. And, you know, it's kind of a threatening thing. It's just a symptom of more people having voices, journalists not being compensated financially for what they're getting, so it makes them a little uneasy and a little backfighting goes on, especially because boxing is such a small pool anyway. But the Twitter beefs with the writers, it's fucking ridiculous. Come on. Are you serious right now? I open my Twitter and sometimes I just shut it back down. It's ridiculous. I almost appreciate the trolls now that I used to complain about, because at least with the trolls, they knew their role. They're there to troll. They stayed in their lane. They came out from under the bridge. They said gruff, and it is what it is. But I don't want to see professionals arguing back and forth on Twitter. It's stupid. You don't go and see NFL people fighting back and forth on Twitter or NBA or anything, or maybe they do and I just don't follow them, but I just think it's kind of dumb. But back to this Hauser piece, then, I mean, hey, Al Haymon is a compelling guy, and they're going to get clicks. If you write a piece about Al Haymon, people are so thirsty to find out things, it's going to get traffic. So, hey, Thomas Hauser, do your thing.
Do we still have Jake on the line?
We sure do.
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay, are you done reading part 5 yet?
I am done reading part 5, yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So let's go in. So let's start with part 1. So what I took from part 1, and I guess we need to make a disclaimer, Jake, is that Tom Hauser is actually a consultant for HBO. Is that his title?
To my knowledge, that's been the disclaimer on every part, that he's a paid consultant with HBO Sports. That came about upon the forced resignation of Russ Greenberg and during the Ken Hirschman era.
So do you see any ethical issues here or any biases with him writing this article? You, as a fellow journalist and a colleague, do you see any biases where this could be kind of shady?
I wouldn't describe it as shady. I would say anyone that's in the industry automatically reads the Thomas Hauser article these days and knows that, you know, he's had a long-time agenda against Al Haymon and, you know, Floyd Mayweather, while we're naming names. And for the sake of disclosure, the audience needs to know I have worked on PBC telecasts. My title was a PBC historian, where my role was to inform the broadcasters of the fighters that are on the card, give them background information. So, well, it's all disclaimers and credits and sources, all that. Let's put that on the table as well.
Shame on you, Jake. Shame on you.
Yes, shame on me. As
You're
someone,
a historian.
Right. Reading houses, what we need to do, instead of criticizing, I think Chris Mannix from now with Yahoo Sports said it best. You can't kill the messenger. You have to read the message. And if you are a first-time reader of Thomas Hauser, I don't see anything unethical in the stories. I mean, he's just putting, I guess weeks of research, into word form. There's nothing. The problem with the series is that, like you said, why do we want to read about an advisor or a manager or a promoter? I mean, Haymon's whole mission is that it's all about the boxer. Boxing is about the boxer. That's who we're supposed to care about. So why do we need to care about an advisor? I don't see anything in this 5-part series, whether, even if it's first-time reader, I don't see any that type of buzz. Maybe Ring TV can say they're getting more readership from this series, but there's nothing really new being introduced, not even from anything he's previously written. I think that's my whole problem with this whole 5-part series. I think the biggest revelation is questioning why Richard Schaefer hasn't yet joined the movement.
Wow.
That's a very good question.
Right.
Yeah,
it's a question that remains unanswered. Even in part 5, all it really says is that Schaefer is still observing and deciding if and when he decides to join PBC, which wasn't always – that wasn't even always speculated. I mean, at one point it was speculated that he was going to take over Mayweather Promotions. That once, once this whole issue with Golden Boy, once he was able to move on from the whole his resignation from Golden Boy, that he was able to take over Mayweather. But that hasn't happened yet. Leonard Ellerbe seems to be doing a fine job of manning the ship. And there's no indication. There was speculation at one point that Schaefer would become, the so-called face of PBC, which is something that it honestly needs if it's going to, be successful, because it lacks promotion at the moment. But there's no indication that that's going to take place, and really nothing in this 5-part series that points out why that hasn't yet happened, even including Schaefer's quote saying, I'm observing and haven't made that decision.
Well, I said earlier that, unless you're living under a rock, you already kind of knew most of the stuff in the series. And if you're just a regular boxing fan, Jake, why would you even care to read all this? Like, why does a lot of this matter? I mean, if I'm a promoter, I would be reading this and like, I'd be, salivating. But why would a regular boxing fan care about all this?
I don't think a regular boxing fan would care about it. And to me, it speaks to, your point earlier where, writers, instead of sharing information with one another and getting along, which I think there are a lot of writers that do get along, but for some reason, the ones that beef with each other, especially through social media, seems to come at the forefront. But it just seems to be about satisfying, writers, showing other, hey, this is what I wrote, and you didn't, or just, satisfying the agendas of promoters and network brass and, people other than the regular boxing fan.
So explain to me then why this series has created a bit of a beef between some journalists. I mean, is it you hate to think it, but or say it, but some maybe have taken a side, over BBC. Some have clearly taken sides. But why has this series created such mayhem between writers?
I don't even know if it's the series. I think it's just, like you said, I think from the moment PBC was formed, I mean, there seemed to be people that were for it. I don't know if there's a lot of people that are all the way in. They're actually that they despise anything else that occurs outside of PBC. But it seems like there are people who don't want anything to do with the series as a whole. I mean, there are writers who just flat out will not cover a single PBC event. And, I mean, if you're a boxing writer, I mean, to me, that's your job. You have to put your agenda aside and cover it. You can criticize it. You could say, hey, the ratings suck, the matchups suck. And that's all, the subject, that's all fair game, in my opinion. But you can't just ignore it altogether. I mean, it's a significant part of the sport. And just like it became an issue 5 years ago when Thomas Hauser, as an active writer and a member of the BWAA, the Boxing Writers Association of America at the time, became a consultant for HBO. It's like, well, how can you cover the sport while you're a paid consultant for the main player in the game? So, I mean, the right steps were taken at that point, but it's just, I just don't get the whole beef over, I don't get why people need to, feel the need to choose a side. It's like, just cover the sport, criticize it if you need to, but cover the sport as a whole, and that's not being done. It just seems like people are arguing, not even for their own beliefs, but for the sake of others. And to me, that's causing a play where everyone's integrity is coming into question as a result.
Right. Yes, definitely some cheerleaders for some people out there. So part one, okay, and I found most of the series to be, quotes from other people, compiled facts, and tidbits here and there that, again, if you follow the sport pretty passionately, then a lot of this you already knew. But part one pretty much just starts out with telling us that Haymon got, $500 million from this venture capital fund, and he started signing hundreds of fighters, which we all knew that, and he started buying multiple time buys on different networks. And there were a ton of upfront costs. There was production, there was staffing. He hired a composer with, and Hans Zimmer to compose the ring walk music. I still laugh about that. There was ramps, there was staging, there was lighting. They hired sport personalities like Sugar Ray Leonard and Layla Ali to do the commentary. So, yeah, there was a ton of upfront costs, especially with the TV buy. So a lot of that money did go away pretty quickly, and Haymon's main goal was to revive the interest in the sport and to revolutionize boxing. Can we all agree that that was his agenda in the beginning?
Correct.
Okay. Part one also states that Al's a very private guy. We know that. Pretty much nobody knows next to nothing about him. Hauser even referred back to like an interview that Haymon did with Ebony in 1994, Ebony magazine.
Jesus. Oh my God.
He tells us who he's worked with in the past. We knew all this. He was in the music industry. He worked with Whitney Houston, Janet Jackson, Boyz II Men. He takes care of his mother. This is the funny part. Al Haymon loves to eat chicken and vegetables, and he drinks cranberry juice and club soda. Like, yo.
That's fajitas. That's fajitas. Chicken and vegetables, that's fajitas.
Yeah, that is some breaking news right there. I mean, of course he likes chicken.
He's black. Of course he likes chicken. I like chicken. What the fuck? Sorry, Linda. What the fuck? Really? What a waste of ink space.
He likes classic old movies. All right, there's some more. I mean, I don't know. Did you get anything really significant from part one, Jake? Was there anything in there that really stood out?
No, nothing really at all. I'm going to summarize the whole series as a whole. It just, the prevalent theme is that a lot of writers, I'm not going to limit this to Hauser because it's an issue with journalism in general. A lot of issues with his past stories were that a lot of the info came from unnamed sources. I think the big reveal in this whole 5-part series is he's got a number of people on record. I mean, including Richard Schaefer. I mean, it's I think Richard actually provides quite a bit of insight. I mean, just from his area of expertise of what he's done in the sport for more than a decade. So getting that many people on record, I mean, it's almost like that's been his big victory. And people kind of speaking for the first time that maybe we always knew it, but now people actually confirm that Al is a control freak, and maybe that's what's going wrong with PBC thus far. Something that could be corrected, if he's able to listen to the right people, but. Getting that insight from, what worked in the past, why leaders were able to, move forward, not just, moving, saying, okay, well, I want to hear your ideas, but my word is final. And where a number of people are saying, hey, you know what, Al always has the final word in everything. So that seems to be the prevalent theme through all 5 parts. But again, I mean, even reading through, I'm sorry to skip ahead to part 5, but just even reading in part 5, like there should be nothing that ends with a question mark. At this point, I mean, we've read over 10,000 words on this series. It's like we should have all the answers we need at this point, not more questions.
Right.
Oh, well, we didn't even get to read it.
I'm not giving away too much. All I'm talking about is punctuation.
Dang. Yeah. Well, if you could describe Haymon from what we do know about him, I mean, I would use certain words like he's persistent, he's smart, he's calculating, but there's people out there like using vile words, and I'm like, I don't know if anybody's ever really met him to call him like a disgusting human being.
Exactly.
Well, I was just about to say that. I mean, you're asking, what we know. I can't tell you. I mean, I've never personally met the man. I don't have an accurate description of the man. I know what I've heard about him through other people. I've heard his voice on the phone. I've never directly spoken with him. I think a lot of people are in that, position. People claim to have met him. They claim to have spoken with him. I personally question that. I think people just go by what they heard from others and have turned that into their own agenda.
Yeah. So one or two things that I did take from part 1, and then we could just breeze right through the other ones. I've always wondered what Sam Watson's role was, because you always see him in the ring with his sons, and I always kind of wondered, like, Sam's a little pimp, you know what I mean? He's like an old school pimp daddy, and I'm like, what does he do? Because I'm always seeing him shaking hands. He's kind of like the mayor, and it did say that, Watson does interact with the fighters on a regular basis, and he does what he can as Al's representative to keep them happy. So not really a babysitter, but he's kind of like Al's eyes and ears and hands, if you should say.
I think that's a fair assessment. In an ideal world, he would be the face of whatever Al is trying to accomplish, where you're not going to speak to Al, but you're going to speak to Sam. And there was a point where Sam was willing to speak, I guess, more than he feels the need to these days. But I mean, Sam is the one that is in the public, and he's always there to, if I guess it depends on the question, but Sam is the one you will talk to, but you won't talk to Al.
Yeah. Let's see. Was there one more thing here? At the very end of part 1, Hauser says that he was told by this couple that Haymon's people ordered highlight reels of knockouts followed by the victorious fighter proclaiming, "I want to thank Al Haymon." I don't believe that, Jake. I'm having a really hard time freaking believing that.
For as many people as were quoted on the record on this series, it's to the point where anything that's said, according to a source who didn't want to be quoted for this story, it's fair game. You can question it at that point. It's like if this many people want to say that much on the record, it's like, why is stuff like that coming from unnamed sources?
I mean, we do know Al still has a flip phone. He is very old school. I believe he orders tapes. I believe he orders tapes of fights and videos, but I don't see him as being egotistic. So for him to watch a highlight reel of every fighter saying, I want to thank Al Haymon, unless he's using it for blackmail, I don't know why the heck he would want that. And it would take a really sick person to want to sit there and watch that. So anyway, the comments underneath the part one are actually really funny. People went totally left. They took it to be about race, and you got regular fans now talking about capital money. And Rob Salka was mentioned like 300 times in the comments. I'm like, see, this created like Bozo the Clown shit. I mean, oh God. So part two came out Tuesday, and it really just talked about, it told us that Al Haymon's brother was a fighter. He was a journeyman welterweight, and his last fight he was stopped by Sugar Ray Leonard. So, oh my God, if you didn't know that about him, now you know.
Jesus.
Which we have, because, Thomas Hauser has actually written a past story specifically about Bobby Haymon, and he's always spoken to about how, that's been Al's, soft spot for the sport. So, anyway, proceed.
He worked early on with HBO and with Kerry Davis. He got really close with him and got his fighters very lucrative paydays there. And he had a lot of control through the promotional process. I think we knew that. But, if you don't know about Al Haymon, now's your chance to hear the quick version. Let's see. He worked with Golden Boy Promotions with Floyd. We know that. I'm trying to dig for something more here. Okay. Jake, this is where you come in. So in part two, it talks about how in March, this whole plan rolled out and how he was buying time on different networks. And the ESPN deal was a $16 million buy that was going to run over a 2-year period. And the shows were to run in prime time on ESPN, and there were going to at least be like 2 Saturday afternoons and blah, blah, blah. ESPN was going to foot the production bill. What happened to Friday night fights? Because we haven't gotten much on ESPN, and this is the part that ruffles my feather. He went in there and bought all this time, and I don't think we've gotten enough on ESPN to make up for them canceling Friday night fights.
In my opinion, I completely agree with that. I have to be honest. Friday Night Fights, the series was a fixture. The last few years were really struggling to get through. I think people miss it just because it's not there anymore. When the series was on, the matchmaking was not great, with the exception of the BoxingScene tournament, which I thought was fantastic. In the final 2 years, Artie Palullo brought the, 4 different weight classes. But other than that, though, there weren't a lot of great moments in the Friday Night Fight series. But that said, whacking the series for what has replaced it, it's tough to justify thus far, and without knowing what else is in queue, and knowing that another ESPN event is not happening until June. That just ruffles the feathers further of anyone who so far isn't on board with the movement, or even people who are willing to give it a chance. And now they're questioning, well, you're saying you're replacing it with a superior product. We haven't seen that yet, with the exception of a few shows. It seemed like the series started out strong, and especially with the August 29th show with Leo Santa Cruz, beating out Moritz, and Julio Ceja, knocking out Hugo Ruiz. It just seemed like the series bottomed out after that. We had, the October show featured surprises, but it wasn't, anything that really moved the needle. And the November show with Erislandy Lara knocking out John Zavic in the rain, that was, it just seemed like, it bottomed out at that point. And the problem is nothing has followed up. It's like, when you have something that fails, it's like following up. That's something that, makes you forget about what we previously saw. That hasn't happened on ESPN for whatever reason. And they keep pushing back the debut of the 2016 edition of PBC on ESPN, which makes it further frustrating.
Well, this is where I may sound a little biased. So he goes and buys all this time on CBS, Bounce TV, ESPN, NBC, Spike, Fox Sports 1, Fox, and all these other places. And so what it's done is it's kind of blocked other promoters out from getting TV time. So it's really hard for a promoter like Russell Pelton Philly to get a show on ESPN or a smaller network now. So there was a really awesome show in Philly a week ago with Jesse Hart headlining, and that was more than TV worthy. The whole card was. But there's nowhere to put good cards like that, and that's what Friday Night Fights was for. They were able to go into Chicago and into Philly and parts of Florida where you got these small guy promoters that put on really good events, really good shows, and good matchups, and it allowed them to showcase their talent. Guys that we've never heard of before, guys that got their start on Friday night fights. You know, it's a shame. It's just not there anymore.
No, I completely agree with that. I mean, yeah, that's definitely missing. I mean, I guess what's replaced that in a sense, and it's not even a weekly series, but it's the closest thing to a somewhat regular series, is what he has going on Fox Sports 1, and even to a lesser degree Bounce TV, which I regularly work on, where those are the two series where we're seeing the prospects on a regular basis. But you're right. I mean, but again, it's limited to the fighters that that are signed under the PBC banner. So again, a guy like Russell Peltz, who I mean, I purchased that show through Go Fight TV last week, and it was the majority of the fights were entertaining. I mean, some of the opponents weren't I guess TV friendly. I guess from they didn't have a glossy record or anything, but we had a hell of a main event between Jesse Hart and Deshaun Johnson last week, and that is the type of fight, you keep a guy like Jesse Hart busy, who wants to move from prospect to contender if he's able to make that leap. It would have, once upon a time, yes, he would have been on ESPN or, a similar outlet. So I could definitely see fans' frustrations that we no longer have that option.
Yeah. Well, obviously Haymon did this because he no longer has to worry about getting dates. He has the dates, he bought them, period. So if you're complaining about not having dates and not getting TV time, well, his thing is like, well, buy it. So, and most small promoters can't do that. They don't have, $500 million, $16 million to go buy time on ESPN. But anyway, the rest of part 2 was pretty much like, oh, okay, they tried to offer Michael Buffer a 2-year contract. That fell through because of, I don't think Showtime was too high on that, just because, they have Jimmy Lennon, and it would have been maybe a little bit confusing, maybe a little rude to bring Michael Buffer on. It also stated that Haymon signs his fighters to management agreements, and in there, his words are that he's going to use his best efforts to secure boxing matches for them. He takes 10-15% of their purses. Again, we hear fighters rave about this all the time, that Haymon doesn't take a lot from them. So that's what they love about him. But then again, they sit there like ducks, and they fight, a couple times a year too. Most of the contracts are 5-year term with some extensions. Actually, a lot of extensions. It's, if he competes in a world championship fight, if he wins a belt. I mean, this is all pretty typical stuff. I'm pretty sure that most managers and promoters have extensions like this, don't they, Jake? I mean, is that pretty normal? Yeah. It
is. I mean, there are certain elements of the Haymon advisory agreement that, differ from the standard, managed contract or promotional contract. But, yeah, in terms of, someone representing a boxer, there's nothing that out of the ordinary with his agreement.
Many people in the industry feel that his fighters are paid way above market value. And I think we could agree to that. But then again, who are we to say, what's fair and what's not fair? Jay, let me ask you, do you feel that the fighters are paid above market value? Like, let's take someone like Omar Figueroa, getting almost $1 million to fight Antonio DeMarco. Do you think that was way above market value?
You say Jay or Jake?
I guess I'll ask Jake. Jay, I don't know where Jay went. Jake, I'll ask you.
Oh, I'm here. I'm sorry. I thought you said Jake. Omar Figueroa.
Sorry.
I mean, I don't know. It's just this, it's not my wheelhouse, so I can't really deem what's overcompensated, what's undercompensated. I know I don't like mismatches, and I don't like being insulted. I don't like seeing fighters who have a lot of momentum behind them, and then they're given a ridiculous fight. Why not continue the momentum? You can give them a lighter touch without giving them somebody who's just completely unranked that you found around the corner at the laundromat. That, and then give them a lion's share payday. For example, like you give Leo Santa Cruz a subpar competition, but then you see two guys like Mike Alvarado and Brandon Rios beat each other's brains into submission for minuscule pay. But they have different promoters, different people behind them, and that's not my business my business acumen, but that's the type of thing that I don't like, but I'm not in that business, so I can't make those decisions. That's just me as a casual observer.
Well, Mr. Donovan,
that's the HR
Yeah, Mr. Donovan, what do you think about it being said so often that his fighters are paid way above market value?
I mean, again, it's a subject that's fair game for debate. But I mean, if it's the agreement that he's making with the boxers, then he's the one that's on the hook for when big fights don't happen because guys think they should be paid what they deem fair market value. Where they're saying, well, if you're paying me X to fight, this guy I knew I was going to beat, then I deserve Y for a guy that is a lot tougher to beat. So I mean, I'm kind of with Jay. I mean, to me, it's in the same subject as fighters who fight long, but after most people feel they should retire. Yes, we can have an opinion on the subject, but it's really not our right to say that they can't fight. So if a fighter thinks they deserve more than what they're being paid, that's great. If they're contractually obligated to get that amount, then it's on the guy that signed them.
Well, I'll tell you, here's the only issue I have. And I think because I've been around so many different areas of the business, I've promoted my own shows, I work with promoters, I've worked with fighters and managers, so I kind of take everybody's side. You know what I mean? I really try to look at everything fairly because I'm for the fighter, I'm for the promoter, I'm for a manager. So, I'm going to really just try to give you my fair take. But Julian Williams on Showtime a few weeks ago, he said to the Charlo brothers, stop taking that free money. Or he said something about free money. They get paid so well to fight mediocre opposition. And I think that's where I do feel some do get paid above market value. So, for example, now you have other people talking about it on social media. So Top Rank is trying to make this fight between Lomachenko and Walters. And you have people that are affiliated with Al Haymon and fighters right now saying that they should each be getting paid like $1 million for that fight. $300,000 ain't nothing. $500,000 is nothing for that fight. And it's like, wow, now you see how getting paid above market value would affect another fighter who's not in the Haymon stable. That's where I could see the problem for promoters because now they have their fighters coming to them and saying, well, Omar Figueroa got $850,000 to fight Antonio DeMarco. Why am I getting $500,000? So that's I think where the market value is affecting fighters in general.
Michelle, I agree with that. But also, at that point, it's a promoter or a manager job to properly educate their fighter. I mean, maybe the boxer's not understanding, why are these guys getting overpaid? But the manager needs to educate the boxer, when he signs them, hey, this is what we can get you now. This is where we can get you if you take these steps. There's also the argument to be made. Maybe these guys, they're just taking, they're taking short money, in the interim. They're getting paid well now, but nobody knows who they are. Nobody's going to know. Nobody's going to care about them. Once they fall off, and then that money's not going to be there. Whereas, let's use a guy like, for Felix Verdejo, who Top Rank is building up. There's that staying power where his paychecks are going to keep increasing, his star power is increasing, and his whatever demand he's going to have in the future, it's going to be justified by his notoriety, his ability to sell tickets, and draw in network interest, as opposed to relying specifically on a manager or an advisor to say, hey, this is the guy you need on air. So. That was, I forget if it was part 2 or part 3 where Hauser even mentioned, I think he quoted Cameron Duncan saying it's getting harder and harder where, he's got to, convince his fighters, I think he used Danny Garcia as an example, whispering, I guess using a metaphor, but, just let's say Danny Garcia whispering, hey, why is Terrence Crawford getting paid this? I'm getting paid this, working without, whatever, so.
Yeah. Well, I will say that none of Haymon's fighters complain publicly. You will hear no complaints from them on public, on social media. Behind the scenes, another story. Fighters, they will find a way to complain about everything. And not all of them are, so hunky-dory happy, but they're going to keep their mouth shut because they're getting fed well. But I want to talk about Keith Thurman real quick. He got $1.5 million to fight Luis Palazzo. And so what do you think he's going to want to fight Sean Porter? This is where things kind of start getting sticky.
It's a fair question, but then it goes back to you wonder what kind of slant Hauser is seeking in telling this story. It's like as far as the public knows, a fight between Keith Thurman and Sean Porter is a done deal. That was supposed to happen in March. It's being rescheduled for June. So you would like to believe all those terms have already been negotiated. Now, are we speculating now that he's holding out for more money, and that's why the fight really hasn't happened? That the injuries suffered in the accident weren't as severe as as we're being led on, there's nothing to support that. So that's some pretty strong speculation at that point. And so maybe that's the problem, you know, in reading through the series, and I'm actually going to get to something in part 2 as well. It's like it seems like certain things are being introduced but not necessarily supported.
Yeah. Well, we know that there's a couple lawsuits out there on Haymon, and part 2 explains a little bit about the Ali Act and why it was created. So for the listeners who have no clue what the Ali Act is, and they're tuning in today because they just, you know, are trying to get the tea here, the Ali Act was created to build a firewall between managers and promoters. So the manager is defined as by the Act as a person who receives compensation for a service, as an agent or a representative for a boxer. A promoter is defined as the person primarily responsible for organizing, promoting, and producing a professional boxing match. So there's a clear line there. Haymon, you know, he calls himself and projects himself as a manager, but many promoters that are not affiliated with him, they see him as a promoter. He negotiates with the network. He determines purses. He set up the fight. So many of them could see him as a promoter. Do we see him as a promoter, Jay?
Of course he is. Come on now. Of course he is. He's a promoter. If you have the final say on everything, then you're not the manager. You have the final say on your fighter, and that's it. But when you got the final say with the network, with who the local guy is, you know, we'll just call a spade. But it's not what you see, it's what you can prove. As Golden Boy and Top Rank and all of them are learning, it's all about what you can prove. You got to prove it first.
Well, Jake, there's a really blurry line there. You know, he puts himself out there as a manager, yet he's, you know, producing the shows. He has infrastructure. He's buying time. He determines purses. How do you feel? I know it might be hard for you to answer this, but he kind of does project himself as a promoter.
Well, I'm going to answer this. I'm going to kind of dumb down the Ali Act version. A lot of it stems from a promoter. I don't want to name names. I'll let other people name names. I'll save that shit for my coppinger. A lot of it stems from a promoter placing a family member in place as a manager. Therefore, you're essentially double dipping. You're collecting money as a promoter while your family member is collecting money as a manager. All of that money is being taken out of the boxer's hand and placed into the promoter's hands as a result. And he's there splitting up the money. I'm not sure. I mean, a lawyer for Top Rank and Golden Boy, the legal team, is going to have to prove that in court if they're going to keep preaching the Ali Act. My understanding of the Ali Act, Haymon isn't necessarily violating it. Is he blurring the line between manager and promoter? Absolutely. But is he? Is it a violation, as you know, in the way the Ali Act is written? I don't know. From where I stand, I don't see him. I don't see him violating that act, and that to the point where he's exploiting the fighter, and that's really what the Ali Act is all about. It's supposed to protect the fighter from being exploited by managers and promoters. And I'm not sure the argument can be made that Haymon is doing that. Now, do we want to call Haymon a promoter? I mean, in the sense where a promoter is negotiating with networks, then yes, he's playing. We can argue that he's playing that role. But the fact that he's not in public, the fact that his events aren't being promoted, I mean, doesn't it sound kind of silly to call him a promoter in that sense?
Yeah. Well, like we said, it's really blurry, and again, I don't know why
he's a negotiator, really.
Care. Yeah. a lot of people care. Hey, if I was Top Rank or Golden Boy or anybody, I would care too at that point, because now that's affecting my business and my money. But, you know, as a fan, or, you know, we all care so much about this now, and really it doesn't affect me. So anyway, that's part 2. It talks about Top Rank's lawsuit, Golden Boy's lawsuit. You can go read about all that. Those lawsuits were filed, you know, like last year, and there's a laundry list of, you know, objections in there and all types of stuff. So far, Al has been resisting discovery. So what that means is he's been asked to turn over a bunch of documents and information, and so have some of the other promoters, and I just don't think that has happened yet.
Right. Can I say something on part 2? It's kind of, you know, off topic from that. My problem that I had with part 2, and again, if you're someone reading this series for the first time, all you know about Lamon Brewster is that he was permitted to fight with a history of he had a detached retina, he had eye issues. And that's what the story tells. What the story doesn't tell is that he still carries Haymon Brewster as a significant member of his staff to this day. Haymon Brewster and Librado Andrade have now kind of taken some of the burden off of Sam Watson in regards to fighter relations. Haymon Brewster is a presence in every single PBC show, and he plays a significant role. He's not just there just to be on camera. I mean, he's assisting fighters, he's organizing events, and Librado Andrade, the same thing, like presumably for all the, the Spanish-speaking fighters. So what bugs me about this series is that, I know this because I've seen it firsthand. If you're reading the series, you don't know any of that. All you know is that Haymon Brewster once knocked out Vladimir Klitschko and that he was permitted to fight in a rematch with, knowing eye damage, and that he essentially ruined Haymon Brewster. But, reading the story, it's like you think he used him up and spit him out, when that's not even true.
See, and that's why we have you on the show, Jake, because I didn't know that. And nobody reading that piece would know that. They would just think that, Haymon set him up and threw him out to the garbage and that the guy is really struggling. And so I didn't know that.
Right, exactly. And what's sad is that that's actually commonplace, historically in the boxing industry. You get what you can out of a boxer. And then once you can't fight anymore, you don't have any more use for him, you move on to the next guy, and, he's left to struggle for himself. And that's why we read about, so many, not even just boxing, just bankrupt athletes in general who, they take the money while it's there, they spend it, they go through it. Once they don't have those skills anymore and that, means to generate that income, then they're done. They're fighting for scraps for the rest of their life. That's not at all the case with Haymon Brewster these days, and none of that is told in any of the 5 parts, unless I missed something.
Well, thank you for bringing that to the people, because we all sometimes love to just focus on the drama, and it's like people feed off of it. So, of course, they're going to feed off of that negative part about Brewster and, oh, man, he's a monster, and how, well, it's good to know he's taking care of them. So, on to part 3 so that we can wrap up this mini-series. Part 3, Hauser talks a little bit more about free TV, and he goes into the investments a little more that was made by Waddle and Reed. I have a question regarding this Ryan Caldwell guy who apparently was working for W&R at one time, and then I guess now he works for Haymon. Have you met him? I think now he's actually started his own investment group.
I have not personally met him, no. All I know about Ryan Caldwell is what I've read through other stories and through, lawsuit transcripts.
So apparently this guy from W&R was pitched the idea, and he liked it, and Haymon asked for a certain amount of money, and this guy said, no, you need this much money to make sure that this thing works. And I don't know what happened next, but the guy left there, and he started working for Haymon. So that's kind of convenient.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and again, it's, the way you summarized that too, like if someone is reading that for the first time, that's the view that they're getting, that, now it's almost like you're reading this and it's like an assistance to, pending lawsuits against Haymon's enterprise. So, and I'm just going to stop there. Like, I don't really want to have an opinion on that subject one way or another, because to me that's for the lawyers to fight out.
Yeah. Well, we know the initial investment was like $500 million, and that's what he had to play with. And what I was told by a really smart financial guru investor is that he says, Michelle, trust me, if somebody is willing to put up $500 million for something and they lose it, you better believe that they'd be willing to put up another $500 to get it back. So, again, if you're not money people and you've never studied economics and you don't work on Wall Street and you've never dealt with investments and capital groups, then that might seem odd to you, but that's actually very normal. There's people that have lost hundreds of millions of dollars, and they will invest that same amount to get it back. That's what rich people do. That's what wealthy people do. So even if it's well runs dry,
No, I was going to say it's what poor people do. Not poor people necessarily, but it's what people do in general. I mean, gamblers. You lose money. You play the number one. You don't hit the number. You go back. You play it again. You're going to keep playing that number until it finally hits. I mean, that's what gamblers do.
Yeah. Well, through 27 fights since March, I guess Haymon, it says, has brought in over $450,000 worth of sponsorships per show, which might sound a lot, but that doesn't even put a dent into the money that they're burning through. just with a lot of the upfront costs and the fighters' purses and the TV buys. So I think they were really hoping to get more sponsorships on board. But see, when you have clowns like Adrian Broner in the media for all the wrong reasons, and you want $1 billion corporation that sponsors the Super Bowl to sponsor an Adrian Broner fight on NBC or Spike, it's just really not going to happen. And I just don't want to point him out because boxing has had a black eye for many, many, many years. And it's just really hard to get those corporations to put money behind it in sponsoring it. It doesn't help with the free tickets. I know that affects the small guys as well. So, you know, a little bit of papering the houses, you know, trying to get some type of system oiled up here with, you know, how do you sell tickets? How do you make these fighters more of an attraction? That's been a bit of a stumbling block. However, their social media team seems to be doing really well. They put out a report that their Facebook social media team has, you know, reached 80 million new boxing fans. And, you know, I don't know how legit those numbers are, but they seem to be building a social media presence. Hauser tell us that the initial investment of over $500 million is now valued at $82 million, or that's the value of it. That's significant cash burn for sure. That's all I got out of part 3. Did I leave anything out?
No, not really. He does touch on the numbers as well, the ratings as well, which I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It hasn't been spectacular at all. There are some parts that he glosses over, though. My concern with that, like just my firsthand, you know, working for Balance TV, I can tell you that the network is very pleased with the returns that have come. I mean, that's, you know, if there's a success story from PBC, it's that Balance had its best year ever, and that PBC was a significant part of that, including its debut episode, I believe setting the record for the highest viewership ever for the network.
Mm.
So it's, you know, he paints on the negative that overall the ratings stink, which, you know, compared to other series, yes, I'll say that they do. But he doesn't touch on where, you know, he introduces the ESPN started out at 799,000 viewers. He doesn't touch on the fact that the August 1st edition, you know, rose in ratings while going up against the Ronda Rousey UFC pay-per-view when she was still, you know, the thing. And then, you know, topping out with the Santa Cruz Mares card. So, you know, if you're going to introduce all the negatives, you got to, you know, point out some of the positives as well. So, again, you know, readers who are familiar with Hauser's work, you're starting to see that slant a little bit here in part 3, if you haven't already recognized it.
All right. Well, part 4, let's see. Richard Schaefer said some things in part 4 that stood out to me. The one thing he did say is that Haymon has this organization behind him, but that he micromanages everything. You know, he always has the last say. It's kind of what he wants. So he has this team that do all these things for him, but ultimately he has the final say. And honestly, I was talking to an old-timer a few weeks ago about that, and he said, you know, he just doesn't have anybody on his team that is smarter than him. And smart people always surround themselves with people that are smarter than themselves, to be counseled, to get advice, to make the right decisions. And this guy said, you know, if he would just hire someone who is smarter than him and that could really advise him better on what's going on around him, this thing would probably be great. So that was a good point. I don't know if Haymon has anybody smarter than him around him that could really give him advice on what he's doing.
You know, again, having never personally met Haymon myself, I can't specifically speak to his brilliance. I can say there are plenty of brilliant people that work on these shows. It's a matter of whether or not he's actually listening to those ideas. So that's where the control issue comes into play. It's not necessarily that he's not surrounding himself with smart people. It's that the assumption is that he's not, you know, grabbing that input and, you know, trying to, I guess, improve his own ideas as a result. It's still, he's hearing what other people have to say, perhaps maybe not necessarily listening to him, though, and still carrying forth with his own mission.
Well, me as a fan, my problem is that there's just not enough consistency for me. I love to watch boxing. Half of the time, I don't know where it's going to be. And I know it's easy. You can go to TV Guide and see what channel it's going to be on. But, you know, you've got fighters fighting on all these different networks, and you're really not building a fighter. You're building the PBC brand. So I think in that nature, PBC has done a phenomenal job. They have built the PBC brand. But then I feel bad for the fighter because I work with fighters too, and I'm like, man, they should be really building that kid differently. Or, man, they should be more consistent with him. Man, he should always fight on, like, one network so that people grow to really like him and they know where to tune in for him. So I think that's where it becomes a little problem for me, is that there's just no consistency. I feel like it's all over the place. Like, even scheduling dates and venues and cities, it feels chaotic to me, and I don't even work there.
Right, I don't disagree with that at all. And one thing I will say, an interesting part that came out of Part 4 was the fact that, you really can't identify a fighter with a promoter anymore. I mean, what's interesting is that Mayweather Promotions, Floyd Mayweather has always been lumped in with PBC. Floyd Mayweather was never a PBC fighter. Mayweather Promotions works with PBC, but is not under the PBC umbrella. The boxers that fight, Ashley Theophane, Badou Jack, Ishe Smith, Gervonta Davis, these are all Mayweather Promotion fighters. These are not PBC fighters. So, and to me, that's kind of important. It's like when you want to know something about them, it's like you want to go to the staff at Mayweather Promotions. Maybe you're led to the same, PR team, but, they do have specific promoters. They have an infrastructure in place where these guys are looking out for the best interest. Other fighters, I think the point was raised about, Danny Garcia. One show he was fighting for Lou DiBella. The next show he's fighting for Tom Brown. So, and then it's a fair question. I'm not, I can't really say if I agree or disagree, but, it's a fair question to ask if a promoter has proper incentive then to properly promote this boxer, knowing that, what's Tom Brown's full motivation if Danny Garcia isn't a TGB boxer?
And that's a good point. Who do you call? And I'll take it a step further. Some of these guys, they could care or care not about going into the Hall of Fame and building this legacy. So it's like, who's driving them to the Hall of Fame? Like, who's getting in the car because they've promoted them all those years and driving them to the Hall of Fame? Because I know there are some promotional outfits like Top Rank that they pride themselves on that. We're driving him. We're going to be there. We're driving him to the Hall of Fame. Who's driving Danny Garcia to the Hall of Fame if he enters there one day? Is it going to be DiBella, Tom Brown? Is it Marshall Kaufman? Who's driving him? Who's going to say, that was my fighter, I promoted him? Angel?
Angel's right.
No, it's a very fair question, and I'm going to point to a success story, though, where one consistency we found. I'm sure there are plenty of other examples, but to me the most notable example is Deontay Wilder, who for most of his career fought, associated with Golden Boy, maybe not specifically a Golden Boy fighter, although they still promoted his championship-winning effort over Bermane's Deverne. But Lou DiBella has become not just a promoter record, but he's taken an active interest in his career. And I think he's done a good job with Deontay and, representing him. We're not seeing that association with other promoters who are kind of filling in for these fighters. Lou's taken ownership of Deontay Wilder's career. So, and to me, Deontay Wilder is always going to be the centerpiece of whether or not PBC succeeds. There's going to be other elements, but, having a successful heavyweight titleist, that's a big part of it. So having some continuity in his career, to me, that's a big help. It needs to happen with all these other fighters as well, though. Like right now, if you ask who's Keith Thurman's promoter, there's really no answer.
And, out of all the quote-unquote sham promoters, DiBella's been in the game for a really long time. He's worked with HBO. He started his own company. And so I think it was really big of him to say, hey, Deontay's going to need that consistency, and I want to be that guy. Because he does get it. But, Lou wants to make money now, too. He still does his Broadway boxing shows on his own dime. And I'm sure he feels like, man, I deserve my just due. I deserve to make some money now. And so he's doing what he feels like he should do. But he sees the bigger picture, and he understands promoting. He knows that a guy like Deontay Wilder needs a promoter. He doesn't need to be shuffled all over the place. That does him no favors.
Right. I'll use one fight that wasn't even under the PBC scope. It was a Showtime event. It was Deontay Wilder's first heavyweight title defense in Birmingham, Alabama, which was promoted by DiBella. It was fought to a sold-out crowd. And you ask Ron Rizzo and Meredith Greenberg and Kevin Rooney, when was the last time they got a good night's sleep? These people, they're not just showing up on fight night. They're there to work. They're there to, arouse interest in the community. So maybe not all the promoters are doing what they're supposed to do, but, not everyone who works with Al Haymon should be lumped in. I don't even like the term sham promoter. Maybe it does apply to some, but I'll cut for Lou DiBella. It definitely does not apply to him.
Exactly. I feel the same. Well, boxing generally doesn't need a lot of gimmicks, and I think when PBC first rolled out, it did feel like a bit of a gimmick, but I feel like they've also made adjustments. You know, when they first came out, they had the Hans Zimmer music, and it was so weird. And he got rid of the ring girls, and you no longer see a ring announcer in the ring, which I love Ray Flores. I wish they would put his face back on TV. He is so funny. So a lot of the gimmicks, you know, kind of fell flat. You know, and I think that they have made some adjustments. I mean, they didn't want to show belts on TV. What else? They had this big ramps, you know, coming in. And I think maybe Haymon or the team realized, like, boxing's still an old-school sport. And even though it's more glamorized now and maybe it's more glamorous, you still don't need the gimmicks. I think he's done away with most of them.
Yeah, I agree with that. And what's funny is one of the quotes, I mean, Hauser doesn't really attribute it to anyone other than, you know, from one of his readers who emailed him, you know, a reply to, I guess, a past story. But, you know, he paraphrased basically, you know, you could repackage a lot of things, but the one thing you cannot repackage is sports. It's like fans know when they're seeing a shitty game or, you know, they don't need, you know, they don't care, okay, well, it's the Golden State Warriors. If the game isn't holding their interest, they're not going to necessarily tune in. So it is tough to pass a gimmick past a sports fan.
Yeah, as a boxing fan, too, you don't really care, like you said, about this special ring walk music and the rotating cameras and these monster display boards. Like, you just want to watch the fight. Because if you get distracted over a camera on a ref's head or it just takes away from the whole moment. And I think that the initiative was cool, but it just fell flat, and it's not necessary. And I think that that's money that they don't really have to spend anymore. And, again, that was part of the upfront cost that absorbed a lot of that money in year one that, you know, you probably won't see in year two.
Yeah, correct. And, you know what's funny? From the very first PBC on NBC show, though, well, I remember after watching it, I felt like I was watching an extension of The Contender. And I don't know if I'm the minority on this. I felt like boxing reality series just don't work. I've never really been interested in them. I was never a fan of Contender. I'm sure Sergio Moro will tell you he appreciates the hell out of what the series has done for his career. And there are plenty of success stories, and it kind of tells that same template where it's, you know, it's supposed to do more to promote the boxer. So, I mean, it was successful in that regard, but it failed in so many other regards. I mean, it didn't even last on NBC. It got moved from NBC to ESPN, I think, to Fox Sports Net before it finally got canceled. And that's what you know, like I said, it didn't feel like I was watching a boxing event. I felt like I was watching a reality series with two live fights. So, and, you know, to speak to your point, they have made those adjustments since then, thank goodness. But, you know, I hope the money is better spent in years. So that's all I will say on that subject.
All right. So we didn't get to read part 5. You want to quick summarize that, and then we'll let you go because we know you've got a busy day.
That's. I mean, no, I can hang on for a little bit more. But part 5 just really introduces, you know, an old acquaintance of Al Haymon's, you know, Dr. Enrico Nelson, who he's a graduate from University of California at Irvine with a medical degree. And he just speaks to, you know, his first meetings with Al, you know, meeting with his family, and just always how he's always been driven, you know, to, I guess, you know, just do more in history, not just kind of fill his role. So that's to me, I mean, there's supposed to be like this big catch in part 5. I guess that was it. It's like you get a little bit more background about maybe who Al Haymon, I don't know if you could say who Al Haymon is, but at least who Al Haymon was before he became Al Haymon, the concert promoter and, you know, boxing advisor.
Mhm.
And then there's some, you know, just some, again, there's, you know, stuff like we're still receiving, you know, we're getting questions rather than answers. You know, why certain events aren't being branded as PBC events, you know, they're being built as Showtime events. There's quite a few fighters misspelled, which, you know, irks me. Sean is spelled S-E-A-N, Jesus Cuellar instead of Cuellar. So, you know, for a research series, it's like, you know, maybe the editor should have, you know, paid attention a little bit more. There's a great quote from Lou DiBella. I think, you know, for those who want to support Haymon, you know, Lou was speaking to those who are against him. You know, those who want Al to fail aren't rooting for boxing. And I agree with that. It's, you know, you shouldn't root for something to fail. You should challenge something to be better. And I think people are missing the point. Missed the point of that all along.
That is such a, is that what DiBella said in there?
That was a direct quote from Lou DiBella.
That's an awesome quote. I always believe, you know, instead of being anti-something, why don't you be pro-something? Like,
correct.
Instead of being anti-war, why don't you be pro-peace? You know
right.
what I mean? Like, why the negativity and the drama, like dump it into somewhere else. And that's why we actually do our podcast, because we do like to call it down the middle. We do like to have fun, but okay, let's see the positives in this too. Let's not just slam everything and everyone.
Yeah. Once upon a time, Don King gave a great quote. He said, people in boxing, they could find a million ways to say no. For some reason, they could never find one way to say yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Sounds like my mom.
And you just, right. Well, I mean, you think about that. It just thinks to how people, again, they just rather see something fail rather than contribute to how it can succeed.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So, it's possible that Al Haymon's ego isn't the only issue in boxing.
Absolutely.
Well, I think we have a lot of callers on, and we usually don't do this, but I'd actually like to go to the switchboard, Jay, and maybe bring someone on to get their take on what they've read and why they care about it, whether they're a fan or somebody in the industry, and see how they feel about the miniseries. Can we bring somebody on?
Sure. Let's go to the 812. 812-760. You're on with the Morning Punch-In. Who are you and where are you calling from?
Hey, how y'all doing, ladies? This is Joey again from Indiana.
Hi, Joey from Indiana again.
Good. How you guys doing? I'm glad I was able to catch you, ladies, today. I got to get back in here in a little bit, but I love the topic and the information that you guys are talking about today.
Well, thank you, and you're welcome. I know that you're a big boxing fan. Does any of what we talked about today really interest you, or do you just like to watch good fights? Did we interest you?
Yeah, I like it because it's part of boxing. It's not actually covering fights, but it's about a guy who's running it. He's running the PBC, so it's good to get some background, information on Al Haymon. As far as like going into, it's a lot of stuff that we don't really need to talk about. But I think it's good just for Thomas Hauser. He's wrote a lot of great books, so I think it's just kind of like a biography about him. I enjoy it, and I'm actually going to sit down hopefully when I get a day off and just go read through it all again. But I really liked how you guys summarized it, and I think it's worth talking about. Like I said, Al Haymon is probably one of the most powerful guys in boxing. We got to talk about it. I'm sure back in the 80s and early 90s, people wrote about Don King too, so it really intrigued me. It got me to call in, so I really enjoyed it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for calling in. We're going to put you back in the queue. Have a good weekend.
Yeah. Hey, can I get one more question? I got a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
You guys, you said about Canelo having a major fight in September. I really think if Bradley can get Pacquiao, I really think Bob and Oscar can maybe possibly work together and set up a big Mexican card on September to have Bradley and Canelo fight. That'd be a nice fight right there.
You know what, Jay? We didn't even think about Tim Bradley if he gets past Pacquiao. That maybe that is the blockbuster fight. Tim did say he'd be willing to move up to 154. I don't know if I like that move up to 154, but maybe that's the blockbuster fight that Oscar's talking about. Jake Donovan, do you know what the blockbuster fight is that Oscar's talking about? Oh, I guess Jake Donovan's not there.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. I was briefly interrupted.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Do you know what the blockbuster fight is that Oscar was talking about in September for Canelo and wanting to put Matisse on there?
I think it's
That's
a way
a big
for Oscar
word.
to not. Yeah, I think it's a way for Oscar to get people to briefly stop talking about why Canelo isn't fighting Gennady Golovkin yet.
Right.
So I don't believe there's a firm plan in place for September. And I actually do have an opinion on how that is all played out. But, go ahead and take some more calls, and we'll get back to that.
Oh.
All right, Joey, thanks for calling in. We're going to put you back in the queue, and we'll bring someone else on.
Okay, thank you. Hey, shout
out. Oh, my bad.
Yeah, just blew up the man's shout out.
I know, man. Nah, there will be no shout out for the Morning Punch Show. Now I'm gonna bring Joey back. My bad.
No,
Joey,
ladies,
go
I
ahead
just
and
want to
get your
tell
shout
you
out.
thank you. I want to give a shout out to Christina Poncher because she told me about your two girls podcast, and I really, shout out to her for informing because I didn't even know
cool.
there was ladies that were hosting the show had a podcast. So thanks to her that I found out about you guys.
Our
Christina.
girl CP.
So y'all be good and y'all keep up the good work. Talk to y'all soon.
All right.
Thank you.
I want to play Know It or Blow It with somebody. Let's bring somebody on for a chance to win a shirt from the Raging Babes tour. We have a boxing trivia question here. Let's bring them on.
All right. 212-793. You're on with the Morning Punch-In Show. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Oh, yes. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, 212. Who we talking to, 212? What's up? What's good? It's like 119 in New York. What's good?
Just a day at work. That's all.
All right. You want to play Know It or Blow It?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
So where are you calling from? New York?
Yes.
What part of New York? What part of NY?
New York City.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's just get right to it. He's like incognito. All right.
His boss. He got a hide from his boss.
We have a 10-second ticker, so I'm going to give you one shot with 10 seconds. Here we go. I'm going to repeat the question twice for you. Here we go. Which class is the heaviest? Flyweight, bantamweight, or featherweight? Again, which class is the heaviest? Flyweight, bantamweight, or featherweight? Jeandra, give him 10 seconds.
I'll take featherweight.
Yeah, that's it. He got it.
All right. See, that's a real boxing fan.
Harder.
Good job.
Yeah, he's a real boxing fan. Dang, I thought we were going to stump him. Well, before we get your information and or do your prize, I guess you've been listening to the show. Does the Haymon mini-series interest you at all as a boxing fan?
No, not really. I think Haymon's pretty brilliant. He's pretty smart what he's doing. And it's just that, something different that not everyone actually agrees with. So he's getting that type of backlash from some people, but I think he's good. I think he's good for the sport. I mean, I don't agree with all the matches that he makes, but I think he's good.
I agree. Well, listen, we need to get with you offline. So if you could send me a message, I don't know if you follow me or Jay on Twitter.
I do, yes.
Okay, so if you could just hit me up so I can get your size and your address, and we'll send you whatever shirt you want from the Raging Babe store.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
All right, thanks for calling in. Thanks for listening.
All right. 212. I don't know. I don't know. That might be the mole.
I think maybe he was the Fed. I think he was the Fed. I don't know. He was like.
Shoot, I'm waiting for somebody to come to my door. Like, open up.
Maybe it was Haymon. Maybe it was Al.
I've always considered this. What if there was some big Illuminati plot one day where the Al Haymon face that we know to be Al Haymon popped up and was like, I'm not Al Haymon, bitches. And it's really Sam Watson. Has been Al Haymon all this time and we didn't know it. That'd be pretty awesome.
Have anybody else? Do we have anybody else on the line that we want to just get their opinion on the miniseries? Because so far, from what I'm hearing, the fans really don't care about all this. I just think it's the people in the media and, of course, in the industry.
It's fajitas. Let's pick up this person. This is Philly.
All right.
267-629. You on with the Morning Punch-In Show talking Thomas Hauser, Al Haymon series. Who is this? And we know you call him from Philly, but who are we speaking to?
Kevin Farmer.
Kevin Farmer.
You never know who's listening to this show. I'll tell you, man. We have VPs, fighters, managers.
I call out to show some love. Y'all funny, man. Y'all too funny.
We're funny.
We ain't doing nothing. We just over here talking a little bit about boxing. We have no jokes here.
Right. How y'all doing?
We're good, but more so we want to know how you're doing. You got a fight coming up in what, like 6 days?
Yeah, about
5 days?
Yeah, 5 days.
Last time we spoke to you on the show, you were hoping to land on that card in Bethlehem with the Julian Williams card, and that didn't happen. What fell through there? What happened with that card?
Well, I had got pushed to the 25th on Showbox, but they didn't. I guess they didn't accept the fight with me, Ed and Cherry. So Lou decided to put me on the 30th, one of his shows for the NABF.
Mhm.
And
I found that very effed up that Showbox didn't want to pick up you and Edner Cherry. That would have been a great matchup for TV.
Yeah,
I guess they thought he was too old. I mean, I guess they thought Edner Cherry is too old. Is that why?
They say a lot of different things, but I don't really talk on it. I just respect the decision, and I just keep it pushing.
Well, good for you. I didn't keep it pushing because I thought that was a really good matchup. I thought that would have been like your coming out party. Yeah, Edner Cherry's a little old, but he gave Pedraza everything he could handle last year. And let's be real, Ishe Smith was still fighting on Showbox like a year or two ago. So don't tell me that Edner Cherry can't fight on Showbox.
I think it was a little more than what they say, but I'm not really trying. I don't really want to get into that. So I just kept it pushing and landed on the 30th, and I'm just doing my thing and then see what happened next.
All right. Well, that's good. I'm glad you got a fight. Did any of what we talked about today interest you as a fighter with this whole Haymon miniseries that came out on Ring TV this week?
No, I just sit back and enjoy it, man. I don't really like to talk about boxing or really even comment on it. I just like to listen to everybody and see everybody tweet and stuff like that. I don't really comment on a lot of boxing stuff like that. I'm not really big on it. Like far as like I be seeing a lot of y'all debating on Twitter and stuff like that. I just be sitting back and enjoying it. I'm not really like a big debater about it. Like I'm not really a big boxing fan, even though I'm in boxing.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not like I don't read up. I don't like know a lot about old fights. I don't really like. I didn't grow up in boxing, so it's not really my mojo. But I love to do it. But
nothing wrong with that. It take all types.
Huh?
I said nothing wrong with that. It take all types. Sometimes you just got to focus on the task in front of you.
Exactly. So the 30th should be another step towards the #1 spot.
That's great. I've seen you on Twitter. If you don't follow Tevin on Twitter, he's at TevinFarmer22. But you've been sounding like really hungry on Twitter, so I got to know, like after the weigh-in, what is the first thing you're gonna eat? Because you've been talking. You make me hungry.
Yo, making weight is crazy. It's crazy because the last time I had to make weight was August the 7th, and that was like six months ago. So now I gotta redo it all over again, and I'm seeing people post food, and I'm going for the kill after I weigh in. I don't care. I'm going for the kill. I'm going hard. I like Italian food though.
Tell me what is up with you and Javier Fortuna. You guys have this love-hate relationship. I mean, you guys are constantly just going at it with each other. What is up with that, you and Fortuna?
I like Fortuna, like, as a person. Like, I like a lot of people as a person. But, like, as fighters, I'm just tired of fighters, like, and a lot of fighters be like, they don't got no say-so because of manager and stuff like that. But you can still bring certain stuff to your manager attention. And I feel as though I like to fight the best, which everybody know. Like, if I can fight the best out there, I will fight them. That's why I always pop my little stuff once in a while. And I just feel as though people take the easy route out, the easy way out. And I'm not with it. I got a lot of confidence and ability, and I know I can beat the best out there. So I want to fight the best. These dudes hand-picking fights and getting paid on hand-picked fights. If you can get paid $1.5 million to fight a bum, why not get paid $2 or $3 million to fight somebody good? But they rather take the $1.5 million to fight the bum. And I don't like that.
Well, I really hope you get that fight because, look, I know Fortuna hasn't fought since last September, and I know he's coming up for a fight. And they're probably shopping around right now to get him the right opposition. So look good next week, do your thing, and then tell your promoter, tell your manager, Fortuna, get you Fortuna in late spring.
The fight next week not going to pass 4 rounds.
And all right.
And I'm ready for Fortuna. Fight next week ain't going to pass 4, and then I'm ready for Fortuna.
Oh, you heard it right here
first.
And I'm going to tweet that, so I'm being man of my word.
All right, then. All right, Tevin, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Train hard. We'll be following you next week for your fight.
Yep, have a great day, ladies.
You too.
All right, you too.
All right.
All right.
All right. I think, hey, is Jake still on the line?
Jake is rocking with us. Jake said he's going to spit a hot 16 for us.
That's right.
Is Javier Fortuna, he's a Haymon fighter, right?
Javier Fortuna is a Haymon fighter, yes.
He's not signed with Lou DiBella, is he? Where is he?
He is signed with Samson Lukutz.
Oh, okay. I knew he had a promoter. That fight should be easy to make. And I know they've been calling around looking for someone for Fortuna. And poor Kevin Farmer, he's been wanting to fight that boy since like last year.
Yeah, Fortuna's name has been attached to quite a few fights, but for whatever reason, he's just been out of the mix since last September. He was supposed to fight. He was in negotiations to fight the undefeated champ from Japan, Takashi Uchiyama. That instead moved to Uchiyama fighting Jezreel Corrales. And Fortuna, again, without a fight, maybe Tevin Farmer, fighting a former champion, Gamelio Diaz, next Wednesday will lead to, Farmer moving into the title mix.
You know what? Speaking of Javier Fortuna, when I think of Javier Fortuna, something that you both spoke on earlier in the show, when I think of Javier Fortuna, I think of Friday Night Fights. That is my earliest memories of him. I think he fought on Friday Night Fights like a gang of times. So
yes, several times.
It's funny. That's just my earliest memories of him. I remember when I first started getting into blogging, that's the platform that he was introduced in. Him, Javier Fortuna, Arash Usmani, and Rancis Barthélemy. When I think of those three fighters, I just automatically think Friday Night Fights because that's where I remember them from. Because there was always some kind of judging nonsense, especially with Usmani and Barthélemy.
That's a good point. Sean Porter fought on ESPN a lot too, I think. Quite a few times. There's a lot of guys that we could say kind of started there and were introduced to us on Friday Night Fights. Hey, Jake, I did have a question. Or not Jake, I'm sorry, Jeandra. Last night you attended an event that was pretty exclusive. Not a lot of people got an invitation to go. Tell us a little bit about where you were at and who you were, rubbing shoulders with last night.
I know. I felt so fancy. It was the best spam email I ever checked. If you don't make a habit of checking your spam mail, you better start. Because for whatever reason, this joint went to my spam mail. So last night I went to this event, a company, Smash Global, that was started by MMA fighter Orozco is his last name. And what they do is they do these benefits for fundraising, and last night the honoree was Freddie Roach, and they're donating a lot of money, the proceeds, to Parkinson's research to the Michael J. Fox Foundation. So I go to check out this event because it's Freddie Roach, but once I got there, really, really high-end, really elegant black tie event, and just a wealth of people. I got a chance to interview Tommy Hearns, Jackie Callan was there, Shane Mosley was there with his lady, Trista. And it was some Dominic Cruz, who's going to be fighting Uriah Faber for you MMA people, was there. You can go to the Bad Culture YouTube channel and check out some of my interviews. I'm still uploading them, but a really amazing event. It's funny, Farmer was just on the line, and he said he doesn't watch boxing, which I thought was unusual for an active fighter. But Tommy Hearns said the same thing last night. I asked him if he was looking forward to any fights that were coming up. He said he doesn't even really watch boxing at all because the business just has changed so much for him. He said he doesn't even really watch boxing. But he did say he liked Terrence Crawford. He said he liked Terrence Crawford. Yeah. So he pays attention to Terrence Crawford, but other than that, you can watch a video with me and him and Jackie Callan. He said he doesn't really watch boxing, and he didn't seem to shy away from the fact like he just doesn't like it anymore.
And he said he enjoys Crawford. For all the shit that Crawford gets, you got a lot of the old school cats that really like watching him. And I think he reminds them a little bit of themselves, and not so much in who he's fighting, because we know that, it's not like he's been able to fight like all A-level top guys, but I think his demeanor, his nature, and the way he fights really reminds them a little bit of the throwback style.
Yeah, I was very surprised by that. I didn't try to goad him and like, well, what do you think about so-and-so? I just let him talk. And that was the name he threw out to me. So, Terrence Crawford, kudos to you, the hitman like you. He said he likes to spend his time watching his Detroit Pistons. So, that's what Tommy Hearns is doing these days.
Interesting.
But he
well,
looked
that's
great.
Cool.
He looked great.
Did you get to catch up with Shane Mosley?
I did. So Shane Mosley was there, and we've been seeing this series. You know, we all got the press release this week that he brought on Roberto Duran to be his trainer for his next title fight. I had heard some rumors around Erislandy Lara, la, la, la. But Shane was being real coy last night. I just asked him straight up, so let's just talk about you fighting Erislandy Lara. And he just kind of looked surprised that I asked him that. Of course I'm going to ask you that, Shane. What's up? So he just said, well, you know, Lara's a 154, and, you know, maybe I'll try one of the 147s. And I said, yeah, Shane, quit playing. So no real confirmation on the fight. I did find out that they and his boxing outfit will be promoting a card in May. And I don't want to spill the beans because they're going to make an announcement of what's going to happen with this card that they're promoting. And so they've got some things coming up. And so, yeah, no confirmation on who this title fight is. I had heard Erislandy Lara, which was very surprising to me, but he wouldn't confirm it for me. Oh, also there last night, for Shane. I'd heard that rumor from a few people this week out and about doing the media work.
Vanis is going to have Vanis is going to have a nervous breakdown. He's going to call the show. Oh God!
And it's
Can you imagine if Lara gets the Mosley fight? Ugh.
If we get Lara Mosley, Vanis is going to call the Morning Punch-In show and tell us it's our fault. he absolutely is. He's already beefing with Mike Coppinger. They exchanged a few tweets where he told Mike, "I didn't say that." Yeah, well, look, off the record. Well, and we're on the record, but I actually texted Vanis that day. I'm like, Vanis, next time don't say that you got hacked. You know what I mean? Because that just brought more attention to yourself. I said, just delete the tweet and carry about your day in your business. You don't have to explain nothing to nobody. And he was like, you're right. So, I mean, you know, it's the oldest trick in the book. Somebody hacked me. Michelle.
You know, that's what got people even more crazy. Yeah.
Vanis said he got hacked.
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying? Oh my God. Stop your fucking lying.
I had to pull it out. You know I love to play that. I had to pull it out. Vanis, quit playing. You ain't get hacked. Them Twitter fingers you got. But anyway, Josecito Lopez was there with no cast on. So he's going through rehab right now. I tried to ask him to give me a prediction for Berto Ortiz, and he just looked like F both of them. But he said he's just waiting for his next opportunity, but he will be watching the fight.
All right. Well, we went a little over today by about a good 30, 40 minutes. Had a great time. Jake, I want to thank you for coming on and helping us keep everything as neutral as possible. If you don't follow Jake Donovan on Twitter, you can follow him at Jake in the Box. Wow, Jake, I gotta spell this out. JAKENDA Box, like straight hood New York style. Jake in the Box. he says it like a true New Yorker. That's how he spelled it, like a New Yorker would talk. All right, thank you for joining us, Jake. We're gonna let you go.
All right, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
All right, thanks a lot. Jake. So hopefully we were able to recap what we know about Al Haymon's miniseries by Thomas Hauser, if anybody cared or not cared. It was an okay read. Most of us knew more about it. But on to tomorrow night, Jay. Why don't we just go ahead and give our quick predictions, and then we'll wrap up the show. Tomorrow night in Oakland is the Andre Ward versus Barrera fight, and the co-feature is Jojo Diaz versus Jason Velez.
Yes. Let's start with Jojo Diaz versus Jason Velez. I like that kid, Jojo Diaz. They're pushing him along nice. This is definitely a tough fight for him. But, for somebody who's an Olympian, he really likes to get in there and brawl. Jason Velez has been in a lot of tough fights, but if Jojo stays focused, I think he can pull out the win. I've got it going the distance with Jojo by unanimous decision.
I agree with you. I'm going to go with Jojo UD. Main event, Ward Barrera.
Hey, I know that we're all leaning for Andre Ward, and I also believe Andre Ward's going to win the fight, but I just think this is going to be a more competitive watch, I'm saying this now just because I said that Ward's going to probably knock his ass out like round 4. But I don't know. We're seeing the first version of Ward at a full-blown light heavyweight. And Sullivan Barrera's been campaigning at light heavyweight for a while. I just think it's going to be a little bit more competitive than people are foreseeing. So I'm going to go with Ward by unanimous decision, but I think it's going to be a competitive fight.
Well, I agree with you. I think that this fight is a lot more competitive, especially as the build-up to the fight was progressing. I've just seen some things in Andre Ward on his social media and in certain interviews that I just didn't see before. Sometimes when a fighter talks so much about a certain topic, it's because that's what they are worrying about, or maybe that is what they're going through. So, for example, I'll just use Gabe Rosado. Everybody likes to focus on his cuts. He gets cut a lot. He bleeds a lot. He cuts a lot. Then he finds himself talking about it all the time because that's in the back of his mind. Drilled that in him, and now he's worrying about getting cut. So, he fought a little more hesitant against Clottey, and he fought more hesitant against Curtis Stevens because of worrying about the cuts. So with Andre Ward, I keep hearing him say that I'm strong mentally, I'm mentally strong, I pray a lot, my mental is good, I'm only focused on this fight, I'm mentally, everything is mental, and I'm like, yeah, he's not mentally good. I don't think he is. I think it sounds good, but I think that there has been so many other things behind the scenes that I think it maybe has finally taken a toll on him. He went through some lawsuits, he went through this and inactivity, and he went through a bum knee, and now he's moving up to the 175-pound division. So I don't know if he's mentally all there. He grew his hair out. He looks tired to me. So I think if Sullivan Barrera can jump on him in the first round, in the second round, Ward might have a little trouble. Now, with that being said, I think Ward is one of the best fighters in the world when he does fight, when he does stay active. I feel like he's very technical. He's a tactician. So he should be able to just pick Barrera apart. At this point, I think it's going to be a mental game.
Absolutely. So we are united in our prediction, Ward, but definitely look for it to be a little bit more competitive. So that's that. Let's see. And that's about the hottest fights that we got going on this weekend. Let me just take a quick gander at my schedule. But, yeah, those are the ones that people are going to be focusing on. Hopefully they'll get refocused after AB's asked and distracted us again during fight week. And, we'll see. We'll see what happens. There's some fights going on tonight on Showtime. Regis Prograis versus Aaron Herrera is going to be on Showtime tonight on Estrella TV. Ring TV card. Antonio Orozco versus Miguel Acosta. I like Antonio Orozco. Nice kid. And Andrew Cancio versus Hugo Cazares is on that card. Jason Quigley versus Freddie Lopez. So those guys are fighting. If you're across the pond, Gary Corcoran and Danny Butler are across the pond. So all those fights are on tonight for those of you who want to tune in. And also, opposite of Ward Barrera in Sheffield, not on our network TV, Kell Brook is fighting against Kevin Bizier for the Brook's IBF welterweight title, but I don't foresee Brook having any problems.
I forgot about a few of those fights, so thank you, Jay, for bringing us the boxing schedule.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Bringing boxing to the people and the people to the boxing.
All right, let's wrap up here. We're going to get our Friday started. Thank you for ending your week with us, and thank you for starting your weekend with us. We appreciate you guys listening in. Hit us up on Twitter. I'm at Raging Babe, and Jay is at Jet Chang, and we will talk to you later. Everyone have a good weekend. Enjoy the fights tonight and tomorrow. All right, we're signing out. Talk to you later, Jay.
Bye-bye.
At age 56, I feel better than ever. I walk 8 miles to work, practice yoga, and paddleboard on weekends with my husband. I'm also a GNC store manager. When customers ask how I do it all, I tell them that GNC vitamins and supplements really help. Our formulas are the highest quality, made with some of the best, most effective ingredients, guaranteed. Now, some of GNC's best wellness products are buy one, get one half off. Which ones are right for you? Just ask. We make it simple. Visit GNC or GNC.com for details.